A special needs trust is a trust that can be created under federal law whose assets don't count for purposes of qualifying for Medicaid. So a person can take a sum of money or other assets, put it into that trust, and still qualify for Medicaid. To be eligible for a special needs trust, a person must meet the definition of disability contained within the Social Security disability income definition found in the federal statute. So somebody has to be disabled in order to even create a special needs trust. For example, if an injury victim recovered a substantial amount of money from a personal injury suit, that money could be put into the trust and that person can still qualify for Medicaid. Now, a trust is simply a legal document that's drafted by a lawyer that tells a trustee, who is a professional money manager, what to do with the money and how to distribute it. So the special needs trust is a legal document that tells the trustee how to make distributions to someone that's been injured but keep them eligible for public assistance, Medicaid, and SSI. A special needs trust is also a tool that can be used by someone who has a substantial amount of assets but may not have enough money to cover all of their future medical care. So those assets can be transferred into the special needs trust, and then they can gain eligibility for Medicaid by having all of those assets put into the special needs trust. There are some limitations and look-back periods where when somebody transfers assets into that trust, there may be a period of time where they won't be eligible for Medicaid, but it's a way to eventually get qualified for Medicaid. When a special needs trust is created, there's typically 3 steps. One is the drafting or creating of that trust document. Second is the creation of a bank account or a trust account that will hold the assets. And then third is court approval of the creation of the trust, because a special needs trust cannot be created by an injury victim themselves. It has to be created by parent, grandparent, court order. So a court order is going to be necessary typically to create the special needs trust. And once the trust is created, the monies or assets are placed into the trust account, and then the trustee will make distributions based on the drafting of the trust document. So whatever the trust document says the money can be used for, those are things that it can be used for, which are typically for the something to improve the victim's quality of life. It's pretty broad, but there are some limitations. Typically, it can't be spent on food and shelter because SSI pays for food and shelter, and so if the trust pays for food and shelter, it can reduce or eliminate the SSI payment, which can cause a problem with eligibility for the Medicaid benefits. So while it's flexible, it still has limitations. And one of the primary limitations that most people don't understand is that the monies in the trust can only be used for the sole benefit of the trust beneficiary, that injury victim. So they can't take money from that trust and give it to their local church or something that's going to benefit a greater amount of people. The trust assets have to be used for the special needs, supplemental needs of the injury victim.